I think it's very interesting. And we're seeing a trend in these commissioners and the things that they're saying and how they're saying them. If you missed it, we had Mountain West Commissioner Gloria Navarez on the show. We have, believe it or not, an invitation out to every conference commissioner in the country. And a lot of them are hesitant to talk. And the funny thing that happens is we'll invite a commissioner on the show and then we'll hear from people close to them. Or we'll hear from an athletic director in that conference, or we'll hear from a booster or an NIL collective in that close to that situation, right? The commissioner won't come on the show. The athletic director won't come on the show. But it's interesting to see that Tim Pernetti's out there talking, and he's talking about the Pac-12 poaching AAC members. And what I found so fascinating about this, one, I probably shouldn't be surprised. Tim Pernetti went on the John Wilner with Radio Wizard in the Northwest podcast, the Wilner Canzano podcast. And it was, again, zero accountability, no follow-up questions, no real tangible substance in the interview. Because listen to what Tim Pernetti said without being asked a follow-up question.
People think I was upset about it. I wasn't upset about it. I worked at Rutgers. My job every day, like we were a great member in the Big East, but my job every day at the end of the day was to do what was best for Rutgers, not for the Big East Conference. And that's why we ended up making that move. So institutions vetting what's out there to see what's best for their school, that's their job. I wasn't upset about it, but what we did was we made sure to surround those four schools with experts and expertise so they could separate fact from fiction and make sure they were dealing with, information that enabled them to make the decision. But at the end of the day, I had no chip in that game. Like, it wasn't my decision. So we chose to just make sure that they were well informed. And at the end of the day, I love how it played out. I love that the schools band together and made a joint statement about how committed they were. And the unity of this conference is actually a real thing right now.
No follow-up question too. Well, wouldn't you say facts from fiction? Like when you talk about X, Y, or Z, no follow-up to that, because why would you follow up a question? And then you listen to AAC Commissioner Tim Pernetti talk about the schools making a good decision.
If I could take you guys back, I remember seeing those four ADs sitting in rooms talking to each other about it and sharing information and like, what did your offer say? And, what did this say? Because, they received actual offers to evaluate. But I was really proud of how they stuck together. And I think they made a decision that made total sense based on the information at the time. And I also know that then you got to turn around and face your fans. And sometimes fans don't dive deep enough to totally understand why you made the decision you made.
I'm amazed by it. I am amazed by it. I am amazed that the Pac-12, and I think Dr. Ed Scott has talked about this. We've played the bites from him. We've invited Dr. Scott on the show, the athletic director at Memphis. You were asking, as confirmed now by multiple people in the AAC, you were asking those four schools to pay $25 million out of their pocket to join the Pac-12 with no media rights deal. And I think when you start hearing about this and you listen to a guy like Tim Pernetti, the commissioner of the AAC, you listen to Gloria Navarez, I'll go back and play, like when you listen to her talking about her decision, does she regret doing a scheduling agreement with the Pac-12? Do you regret it? Do you regret taking that step? Do you regret having those conversations with the Pac-12?
Not at all, because without that scheduling agreement, we wouldn't have the protections that we had that helped keep the league together.
Boy, that's a heck of a perspective. I give you a lot of credit for that, because it would have been easy right there to say, yeah, I regret it. I wish we hadn't done it. Very direct. Answer the question directly. go right at it, right? You listen to guys like Tim Pernetti, they go right at it.
Oh, guys, look, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't worried, or I'm not worried, but I wasn't concerned. Certainly when you're 100 days in to a job like this and something like that surfaces. And by the way, eyes open, I knew when I took the job that it was probably only a matter of months before something was going to, surface up and we were going to have to deal with it. So what did I think of it? I expected it. I don't know that I expected it from one conference or the other, but I expected it. Why? Historically, the American has been a breeding ground that has built strong programs that have moved into these conferences. So I expected that, like, we are always walking around with a target on our back.
Like, just go right at it, right? And then you listen to Teresa Gould with Front Office Sports, not go right at it.
And I think everybody on my team thought we had some time to kind of figure it all out. And certainly we were mapping out all those scenarios. Like, was there a pathway in another conference? Yeah. There were lots of talks about mergers with other conferences, and there were a lot of different considerations. And at the end of the day, the path to rebuild the Pac-12, that opportunity came about quicker than I think we would have thought. Yeah. And
just talking around it, not going right at it.
Yeah, and I also don't think being totally truthful about it either.
And I think the issue is that you listen to Tim Pernetti and Gloria Nevarez talk about what the Pac-12 has done and the actions that they have taken. They don't have money to offer people, and they don't have a media rights deal to offer people. And again, I go back to what Ed Scott said on 92.9 The Game in Memphis when he was talking about not living in what-if scenarios.
I don't live in a what-if scenario, right? Be there. Look, we got to beat Tulane tonight. You want to talk to me about the Pac-12? I want to talk to Penny about Neon Light Night at Tulane and how he's going to win that game. My worry is what's in front of me. If you look backwards, you get depressed. If you look forwards in the future, you get anxiety. I live where my feet are planted, guys, and I got to win today, right? And because if I don't, you're going to talk about that tomorrow.
Absolutely.
Right? So I just take it one step at a time. If the Pac-12 were to come back to us, we'd listen. We'd continue to do our due diligence for the University of Memphis. I have to. It's incumbent upon me. I'm paid well to do that. And you heard in the Calkins interview, I care about Memphis first. I came here for a reason. This is not about Ed Scott.
Being very direct. And I think he's right. And I think here's the issue when you hear all these different voices and you hear Ed Scott and Pernetti and you hear, Teresa Gould and you hear, all of these people directly involved in the situation. It doesn't make sense to do business with the Pac-12. That's what's resonating now. You hear Ed Scott yesterday talking about, do I really want to fly my soccer team on a two stopover flight to Pullman, Washington?
No.
And pay $25 million at a minimum to get out of the conference? No, I don't. And you hear Tim Pernetti say, is it going to happen again? Yeah, we know it's going to happen again. And you hear Gloria Nevarez say, hey, we were on the verge of an existential crisis, and then we got together in a room, we had real conversations, and we figured it out. And it leaves the Pac-12 in this situation where you have an unsavory taste in your mouth now, where you have left, in my opinion, the biggest mistake the Pac-12 made was not taking the shot. The biggest mistake they made is they missed every shot. They missed UNLV, which would have ended the Mountain West. They got Utah State, not UNLV. They missed their shot.
Yeah.
They missed Tulane. They missed Memphis. They missed UTSA. They missed USF. They missed their shot. So now you lose this position of being in the cover of darkness because everybody sees you coming now. So the Mountain West has a grant of rights, and you're not getting UNLV. And if you do wind up getting them, which I don't think is possible, based on what people at UNLV have told me directly, you're not getting UNLV. And if you do, it's going to cost you tens of millions of dollars. Tens of millions of dollars. So again, maybe you're just doing business like Jerry Jones and the Cowboys. I'm going to wait. And then I'm going to pay way too much for Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb.
Right.
And now at the Pac-12, I'm going to wait. And I'm going to overpay if I can get Memphis and Tulane, who most people believe have a grant of rights in the conference. So I don't think you're doing anything that other conferences aren't doing. But it's how you do it. And, Gloria going to the commission, Gloria Navarra is the commissioner of the Mountain West, going to the commissioner of the MAC and saying, hey, we want to approach Northern Illinois about joining our conference. Did she go right to Northern Illinois? No. She went to the commissioner. She followed proper channels. What did Tim Pernetti and the AAC do? What did these 4 athletic directors do? They all got in a room and they communicated openly. Pros, cons, yes, no. Why should we do this? Why shouldn't we do this? What do the numbers look like? No back of the envelope calculations.
Yeah.
They got in a room. They sat at a table. Tim Pernetti. And I think this is really, really important. Tim Pernetti talking about how, they got in a room together.
Yeah. I mean, I think when you consider, Pernetti's, perspective, remember when this happened? Because this happened last September. He had just taken the commissioner job.
100 days on the job.
So you think about his role in all of this, and I think it's really interesting. Like, Tim Pernetti is a guy that came from the TV world, right? Tim Pernetti is a guy that is uniquely qualified, in my opinion, to handle these situations as a commissioner of a conference, because he understands the media rights portion better than I think a lot of commissioners probably do, because he's got firsthand experience doing it from the other side. So he knows what those people want. And so I think the one thing that stood out to me was that Gloria and Tim both said, hey, it's not lost on us that we're sort of yes, we're in the G5, but teams and talent are going to leave our conference all the time. That's sort of a fact of life in our situation. And it's not something that we run from. And I think that people like to turn that into, oh, well, you guys are a second-rate conference. You're terrible. That's not what it is. It's much more of, hey, we have a solid conference at our level. And we had these 4 schools get approached by the Pac-12. And it was a beautiful thing to watch these ADs get together and talk and communicate. We didn't try to sway them, but what we did do is give them all the accurate information. Yeah. Because what have we talked about for the last week? We've talked about how, and Ed Scott kind of touched on this, is like, hey, your argument is based on like passion, and your feelings are based on passion. But here are the facts of the situation with the Pac-12. And those facts just don't add up to, hey, we're going to go ahead and join that conference and leave our current situation. And so, again, I'm going to bring this up for all the Pac-12 people in the room that tell us we're dumb and don't know what we're talking about. Hey, what is it about the Pac-12 opportunity that would make someone say yes? Because I'm still trying to figure that out. I'm still trying to understand, why would someone say yes?
Well, and the other thing that I think Pac-12 fan doesn't want to wrap their head around is, and you don't have to, everybody is telling us the same thing. And now that they're all talking publicly, they're saying exactly what we've said. It doesn't make sense. You look at, again, Ed Scott, 92.9 The Game in Memphis. Listen to his own words, because you've heard him on this show before.
Normally, I wouldn't have put all that business in the streets. Not my style to do all that. You guys had information. Other media outlets had information about that deal that, frankly, probably shouldn't have been out there. And so a couple months into your point, I needed to be able to let folks know why we didn't do it. It was strictly numbers, right? There's nothing more to it. The deal was not any better per cap, meaning what we get currently from the American to what we needed to go out to the Pac-12, considering the increased travel and some of those other things. Look, if you're talking about football or basketball, guys, let's cut to the chase to your point. They charter. They travel differently. Brooks, right? Women's soccer. That guy's is the most wingiest coach that I have in the entire portfolio of our entire athletic department. I'm going to put him on a 2-stop flight to Pullman, Washington? right? And then maybe have to cut his budget because we're not going to have the same disposable income. I'll say it this way so the average person can understand this. It's not how much money you make, it's how much money you have left after you pay your bills, right? You can make $1 million in LA and spend 900,000. Well, you got 100 grand left.
Right.
You can make $1 million in Memphis, Tennessee with no state tax, which I don't, by the way, but you could make that much and you have a lot more disposable income.
Right.
So it just didn't put us in a position where I felt like we could continue our ascension, for all of our sports, because I'm the AD for all of those young people and those coaches as well.
I mean, he almost quoted me. It's not how much money you're making, it's how much money you're spending. It's not how much money you're making, it's how much money you have left.
Yeah.
And the financial infrastructure doesn't make sense to join the Pac-12 because whether it's travel, human cost, infrastructure, it just never made sense. So all of that to say, Tim Pernetti, Gloria Nevarez, Ed Scott, they're all telling you what we've told you for months. And really since last September, I guess, August, the Pac-12 doesn't have anything to offer right now today. When they get a media rights deal, and I just ask you again, how much would that media rights deal have to be to make the case to Memphis to pay $25 million of their own money to leave the AAC?
And within that, I think when you're trying to get a media rights deal in your current situation, how unconventional is that media rights deal going to be with your media rights partners? Because you're going to have to say to them, hey, like, this is our baseline right now. This is where we are now. So we understand that value is going to be a little lower. But once we get this done, we're going to go out and try to get Memphis and try to get Tulane and these other schools. What are you willing to pay for those schools? So not only are you having to get one done, it's got to be unconventional. And then everyone's going to say, oh, well, what about pro rata? Well, pro rata doesn't necessarily come into this conversation. That was a Big 12 tokened item that they rolled out because they saw what was coming. I'm not so sure that TV partners are going to be like, yeah, we'll give you a pro rata on this or that. Like, I just don't think
meaning an equal share if you add.
Yeah, like I don't think that a TV partner is going to say, yeah, we're going to give you an equal share for every school that you add just on a blank basis. What instead they would say is, hey, well, it depends on who you add. Memphis will get one number and Tulane's going to get a different number. And and that's what makes it difficult. So again, everyone, and I'm going to keep saying this, everyone says we hate on the Pac-12. I'm not hating. I'm instead saying, bro, I don't understand how you're going to walk across this bridge or bridge the gap here. I don't know how you get to the other side.
I really don't. I'm not sure exactly what that is or how that works or what it is that you can do. I don't know. I'm not sure how you fix it. That's the bottom line is I don't know how you fix it if you're the Pac-12. And I don't know that you need to, fix it's probably, you can't keep doing the same thing you've done for years and years and years. Because that's what this is.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it is, you can go back to the Big 12 days where you couldn't get that deal done. Like, it's been over a decade of time where you have not been able to go and grow your conference. You have not, do you understand if they'd have got Oklahoma State, Texas, and Oklahoma, when we told you they were, it's one of the greatest Twitter things I've ever put out. Right? Back in that day, it would have ended the Big 12. The Big 12 would not exist today. And the Pac-12 couldn't get it done. The Big 10 gets it done with USC and UCLA. Ends the Pac-12. That was the beginning of the end.
It's over.
So you keep those two, Washington State and Oregon State, and they say, well, we're going to be a power conference. We're going to be a power conference. And all these dudes on Twitter the other day saying the Pac-12 is going to build back and be recognized as an A4 and a power conference. How? Memphis saying that they want to compete at the highest level for in a power conference. How does going to the Pac-12 make that move quicker or shorter? It just doesn't make sense. All right, let's get into your thoughts. Let's see. You guys are still on Sal's comments. Some of the most overused words in the interview at the end of the day. Correct.
Yeah.
This is why. When Brett leaves, Gloria needs to be the Big 12's first call. Oh, I don't know that Brett's going anywhere. TJ Beck, Jakey Two Shakes, was the Pac-12's offer serious? $2.5 million to Memphis to pay the rest? That's arrogant of the Pac-12.
But again, it's the same behavior. Like, you're not wrong. It's the same behavior we've seen for how long. And I also think there was a time on our show where we gave the Pac-12 another chance, where I said, hey, okay, like, you're trying to rebuild. Maybe we see a change in behavior. Maybe now we're going to see, like, under new leadership, not really new leadership, just a different person leading the conference. Maybe we see like this rejuvenation. We see, hey, we're going to go about this differently. We're going to understand that our first priority has to be to get a media rights deal done. And that media rights deal, that first one, maybe it's not 10 mil a year or 12 mil a year. Maybe it is, $6 to $8 million a year per school, depending on what school you are. But we understand we have to get that done first and get back to being able to pay our bills. Then we can take that next step towards chasing the bigger fish like Memphis and Tulane. But my point in all of this is that that's not the behavior we're seeing. We're seeing, hey, we're valued at this, $10 million a year by almost everyone's reporting is what the Pac-12 would like to see. And we're not going to expand until we get a media rights deal done. But again, that's just not the right way to go about it, just like it wasn't the right way when it was George Kliavkoff and company.
And it's not that you're poaching teams that's necessarily the problem. It's how you're doing it.
Yeah. How different would this conversation be if Teresa Gould had gone to Gloria and said, hey, we want to add these teams?
If you hadn't signed the scheduling agreement. Because that's what you should have done. You should have said, we're going to, instead of signing a scheduling agreement with you, we are going to add 4, 5, 6, 8, 10 of your schools to our conference. And that's how it should have been handled. That you should go to Tim Pernetti and say, hey, we're going to speak to Tulane, Memphis, UTSA. That's how it should be handled. The problem is the AAC, and somebody, welcome to the nightmare, made the point. UCF, Cincy, Houston, that happened. The PAC recently tried taking 4 schools. Glad they stayed because it would have been lose-lose for those schools.
But I think that's a great point. Look at the difference between the Big 12, quote-unquote, poaching teams versus the Pac-12 poaching teams. The Big 12 is, without a doubt, unequivocally an upgrade for any school that's in the American, right? And everybody universally agrees on that. You're going to make more money. You're going to have more access. It's a total step up. But again, I bring up the geography in the conversation. The Big 12 is also centrally located. Memphis into like Memphis or Florida, like you're just flying 2 hours. You're not flying 5 hours or whatever and doing multiple
Memphis
stops.
to Stillwater, Memphis to
like
Fort
look how
Worth
regional that is
not a problem. Andrew G for $2. Water seeks own level. Grant of rights expire. PAC will be best. Based on what? Explain. See, Guy, you like to come in here and just throw out generalities. When you say the PAC will be the best what? When you say grant of rights expire, nobody has a soon to expire grant of rights. Nobody has a soon to expire grant of rights. And I don't know. Do people understand that?
I'm going to guess most people do understand that. That's not difficult to comprehend.
Do you get that that's why it's $27 million to get out of the American? Do you understand that that's why UNLV is not leaving the Mountain West? Like when you say, hey, they're the best or PAC will be best, what does that mean? Give detail. Tell me exactly what that means. Bradley Dunkel says thumbs down. Mike Smith, Pac-12 was stupid to shun BYU. It was very stupid. Very, very stupid. Tulane and Memphis going to the Big 12 before anywhere else, which is their stated goal. I mean, their whole goal is to get to a powerful conference.
Again, who can blame them? The Big 12 is a nice fit for them. Like that makes sense. And yeah, I mean, at some point, with the changes in college football, there's going to be more consolidation, as I call it, right? Conferences are going to fold. The conferences that remain are going to get bigger. Like that's the process that's going to play out over the next 10 to 15 years.
Yeah, it is. It'll be interesting to see how all of that plays out. I just don't know that you can, and especially with this Greg Sankey conversation we had today.
Mm-hmm.
You can't just anymore overlook the cost of flying from Memphis to Pullman or Memphis to Corvallis, or when you're talking about not having a seat at the big money table. It matters, man. It absolutely matters.
And think how regional the SEC is. I mean, again, if you're flying regionally, short flights, and you're playing those huge games, LSU and Alabama is a short flight. What is that? An hour flight? 2 hours?
And I get worn out on Pac-12 fan not being able to explain their points.
Yeah,
it's
tired.
It gets tired. You have to admire the Pac's commitment to idiocy. The cast may change, but they keep singing the same song. Gould is just a Muppet operated by Scott and Klyavkov. Well,
I mean, it's all the same messaging. It really is. And I'm glad you see that too, because she talks and I'm like, man, this sounds awfully familiar. Like,
well, and don't take our word for it. Again, I ask you, listen to her talk about adversity being the best teacher.
They always talk about adversity being the best classroom. Yeah. And I would certainly say in the Pac-12, we've had quite a bit of classroom over the last few years for me to learn as a leader. I'd say.
Do you understand what she just said right there? I'm learning to be a leader. And I don't necessarily have a problem if you're saying, hey, I'm learning on the job. Can the Pac-12 have a commissioner who needs to learn on the job?
No.
You can't. And if you want to directly contrast that to Gloria Nevarez, she came into the Mountain West with volumes of experience. She had been a commissioner. She had been an administrator. She had overseen women's sports. She worked at the college level. Tim Pernetti worked at the college level, worked in television, knew how to bring people together and, take the murky water out of it and bring them clarity about, hey, here's what you're asked to do. Here's the money. Here's the opportunity. Teresa Gould is talking about how she's learning on the job through adversity in the midst of an existential crisis. So we can talk about cool shit like, oh, water seeks its own level. You don't even know what that means. Explain to me how the PAC is going to be the best. And of course, ghost.
Yeah.
No answer, because that's what Pac-12 fans try to do. That's what the Pac-12 conference does when they go on front office sports and there's no follow-up questions.
You're not having a real conversation with front office sports.
Or with, like, you look at this Canzano-Wilner podcast with Pernetti, it's a dreadful interview.
And the funny thing is, and you were kind of alluding to this, the funny thing is Tim, just says stuff. Like, he just talks and is
lays it out there.
Lays it out. And I don't know, man. Maybe, I'm not trying to talk bad about other people or whatever, but I just get tired of, hey, this person went on this show and they don't ask him a single real question. It's always like, oh, well, where do you see the conference going? Like, okay, cool. Broad brush, just wildly open-ended question. Hey, how about, with the fact that, the Pac-12 is trying to poach your schools, where do you see this conference at in 5 years when you think about that and you think about the changing landscape in college football?
Yeah.
Maybe something about the grants of rights, or maybe I don't know, but I just wish that when these commissioners and ADs give their time, ask them a real question.
Wait, and so Andrew says current PAC schools want better games, best G5 games. Well, but I agree with you. That's what they want.
But that wasn't your point.
So why are you going about it this way? You tried to burn down the Mountain West. You didn't try to just expand with their unit. You tried to burn down the Mountain West. You tried to undermine the AAC. That's what, in my opinion, you were trying to do. But if you want the best G5 games, do you have that now? You don't. You don't have the best G5 games. Like, what is your best football matchup? Boise and who? Does Boise, Washington State move the needle? It does not. It does not. And this is the problem, I think, for the Mountain West. The Mountain West doesn't have that big game either. And the real truth is, nobody has that game. Nobody has that game. Because I'm not who's tuning in, and this is the $10 to $12 million fallacy that Radio Wizard in the Northwest keeps putting out there, that it's going to be $12 million per year per school in the media rights deal. Who's paying $12 million a year for Fresno State and Boise State to play a game on ESPN, on NBC, on CBS, on Fox Sports? That doesn't make sense. It's $6 to $8 million. And I don't think it's $6 to $8 million for two conferences. I think one conference will get a better deal than the other. And the Pac-12 is in no position to get a better deal than the Mountain West. They're just not. So when you say best games, current PAC schools want best games. And I want to be 150 pounds and 3% body fat. I want to be a millionaire. I want to be a billionaire. We all want things, but you have to know how to go about doing that. And we can sit here and, anyway, Roche, PAC seemingly still can't look in the mirror. They can't. They don't. They don't.
Yeah, I just think they refuse to.
Mike Smith, drive-by sniping, pretty much. The PAC decided to promote a temp versus what every other conference is doing. Exactly right. Exactly right. You were selling a bill of goods. You were selling a bill of goods. And Xavier Wolf, I don't know what you're commenting. Xavier Wolf is the only guy this morning getting filtered by YouTube. So,
solid.
As usual, Xavier Wolf contributing to the program. Let's see. Who else? Boyd Lake. There's little substance when the PAC officials talk. That's how you know they're sunk.
Yeah.
I would agree with that. This might be beside the point, but given all the moving parts with the SEC and the Big Ten and the power they have, the Big 12 needs to produce in a big way on the field this year. It's critically important.
Yeah.
Yes, Bradley Dunkel, geography matters.
It does.
And Tanner, I think you're exactly right. We are at a tipping point with, you guys understand that it's already been decided what the college football playoff is going to look like this coming year. You understand that. And my guess is, and most people I talk to think it's going to be 14 teams. And it's going to be 4-4 for the Big Ten and the SEC. And that the automatic bye weeks are going to go away, and it's going to be stacked 1 through 14 by the College Football Playoff Selection Committee. And the other thing I think is interesting, strength of schedule is going to be the number one component in deciding the quality of a individual football team's case. So
as it should be.
As it should be. That's going to be very interesting. Brandon Butler, Tanner, it won't matter if the Big 12 or ACC produce on the field. The Big 10 and the SEC will just put the hammer down as a one-off, but just be ready for the end of college football as we know it. And I think the hardest part about this is you'll have to be overwhelmingly amazing. Unless, like Florida State is a one-loss team is going to the college football playoff.
Yeah, big enough brand for sure.
But if you look at anybody in the Big 12, and this is what I continue to say about the Big 12, there's no brand in the Big 12 that gets the benefit of the doubt. BYU last year, how many times do we have this conversation? BYU couldn't lose to Arizona State. Once they lost to Kansas, we told you hit the panic button in Provo.
Yeah.
Because now you lost the benefit of the doubt. You lost the hammer, right? You lost it. And Arizona State had Cam Scadaboo. They had a great story. They were the Fighting Dillinghams. Kenny was ready to murder people. Like,
yes,
they were always going to get a more of a push because the story was better. because BYU, Colorado, there's no brand here.
Yeah, I think Dion really is the only one in the Big 12 right now that would people would be like excited about and maybe would give a slight edge to.
And he's a brand on his own.
Yeah.
Which is a big difference, in my opinion. Brandon Butler, the Super League is coming, but will the Big Ten and the SEC and whatever schools they poach or add? Well, I think it could be interesting. I don't think, and I know this is unpopular, Greg Sankey understands he needs a national, continental college football game. It can't just be that you are the Big Ten and the SEC and that's who the champion is. Greg Sankey knows that.
You're not a champion if you're not playing everybody in the country.
You cannot be insular, which is to say shut everybody else out. You have to at least have the myth. You have to at least have the dream that is Rome, right?
Yeah.
You have to be able to say, oh, yeah, Gloria, we're going to give you one spot. The G5 is going to get one spot. I know that the Pac-12 wants that one spot, so they're the best conference because they want it. We'll give the G5 one spot. That's what you're going to have to take. And then when the Super League comes along, I think the biggest issue is the $20 million revenue sharing number that Gloria Navarez told you on this show most of her universities are not doing. The biggest issue is that number is only going to get bigger. Yeah. It's going to cost you $100 million a year to contend for a national championship. That's how they're going to force people out.
Yeah.
That's how they will push.
So the story will be, to what your point is, hey, the story will be, hey, this school decided they didn't want to be involved.
Correct.
The story won't be, hey, the SEC and the Big Ten pushed them out. Yeah.
We pushed them out.
And that's the PR game.
Andrew for $2. Consolidation is happening in the P4. It is. Same with the G5. Consolidation is not happening in the P4.
Yeah.
You're not shrinking the P4. What are you talking about?
You're just and you're getting to a point where I'm not interested in hearing your comments because you're not saying what you're doing is you're just making these blatant statements and you're not saying why or there's no context.
There is no consolidation. They're not shrinking the P4, which is what I think you're trying to say.
No, the P4 is getting bigger.
It's not getting smaller.
Yeah.
And what they're doing is they are dictating. They're not consolidating their power, grabbing every bit of power for themselves. They already have it. They don't have to consolidate. It's already, the power is already with Greg Sankey, and you want to make all these big statements. What you don't understand, money talks, and the Pac-12 doesn't have it.
Yeah.
And they're in a really odd spot. We've never seen it before, where they can't add because they don't have a TV deal, and they can't get a TV deal because they can't add. And now what they've done, and their biggest mistake was they took their shot and they missed. And why that's a huge mistake is because now everybody sees you coming. You're not under cover of darkness anymore. So you hear Tim Pernetti saying, we're ready. You hear the athletic director at Memphis saying they lowballed us.
Well, and what's so funny is you hear Teresa Gould say, hey, you have to be cognizant of the threats that are on the horizon. But that doesn't work for you because you are the threat and everyone else is aware of you now.
And everybody knows how to handle you. So the P4 is not shrinking. That's not consolidation is not happening in the P4.
Yeah, it's just not true. Like
the G5, is it shrinking? No. The P5 is exactly what it's always been. In fact, there's one more G5 conference now because the Pac-12, if they get to 10.
Which I still think is a massive if.
Right? And that's why I continue to tell you, the Pac-12 needs to do everything they can do to help Sac State escalate their timeline. Right? And people, you continue to forget it costs $5 million to become an FBS program from FCS to FBS. Sac State is telling you we have the money to do that. The timeline is the question. They're probably not an FBS until 2028. You need to help them. They're incredibly important to you, because I still maintain you wouldn't be going after Texas State if you could get UTSA. Right? That's the biggest issue. There's not consolidation. That's not a real thing. The problem is that people like to talk use phrases that they don't understand. That's what this is. All right. Today's lesson for the PAC: money talks and bullshit walks. Yes, it does.
100%.
San Diego State licking the boots of the PAC leadership since 78. Why? They're idiots. So extremely frustrating.
I don't blame you, dude.
And it's what Teresa Gould said yesterday that, again, I asked Pac-12 fans, well, man, our brand, it was just really clear our brand had real value. Okay, to who? Your brand has real value. To TV partners that you don't have a deal with, to AAC members who weren't willing to foot a $50 million bill at the end of the day to join your conference, to UNLV who wasn't willing to get into litigation with the Mountain West to join your conference. And the biggest question I have is, are the people in Boise thrilled they made the move they made?
I don't know how they would be.
I don't know how you can say they are at this moment.
And again, the question of what happens if the Pac-12 folds officially and dies. What happens to these schools that join? Do they go back? Would they be allowed back?
I don't know. Boyd Lake, P4 is growing. If anything, I agree. And I'm just, for some context, we don't read comments that are typed in all caps. To Jakey Two Shakes' point, Prime is the brand in the Big 12. Colorado and him move the needle because you either love him or you hate him, and he does things unconventionally.
And whether you love him or you hate him, you watch.
You watch and you listen. Big Papa War Machine. He spent $6 million on $6 on wild opinions. I respect that. I
appreciate you, bro.
Thank you for helping us. More specifically, the P2 is growing. They've already have all the power. Thank you, Notre Dame. Blame us because we did it. They already have all the power.
Right.
So it isn't a matter of Tony Petitti and Greg Sankey trying to, grow their influence. They have the influence. If anything, I agree with Boyd Lake. It's the P4 is growing. Wait till the Baptist overlords are back on top. I too will pay to share ridiculous opinions. We're going to be so back. Exactly. Which is fine. PAC leadership being idiots.
Yeah.
Yeah. My P4 is getting bigger.
Stay hard.
Dude, that's the brand of today's show,
UW fan Jim, good morning. I can see the P4 becoming the P2 unless the Super League gets here first.
Yeah, we'll see.
I don't think that Greg Sankey wants that to happen. Because if that happens, you couldn't do it in the way that today's college football is set up. You're not going to push out everybody else so that you can, because TV is not going to pay you more for that. You're assuming that every major recruit would just go play in the Big Ten and the SEC, and they're not. They haven't. One of the things we've learned is that does the Big Ten and the SEC get great recruits? They do. But what inevitably happens is Deion Sanders is right. Hey, that's cool. You got 50 recruits in your class. Good luck getting 5 or 10 of them to be productive players on your roster.
Seriously.
Because all those other ones are going to jump in the portal and become stars. We see it all the time. And guys like Caleb Downs, very rare. Very, very rare. Will Howard going from K-State to Ohio State and winning a national championship, incredible, but also incredibly rare.
Which, by the way, Buddy deserves a lot of credit for that because there was a lot of pressure to win.
Yes, he does. Yes, he does. You know, it'll be interesting to see. TJ Beck, if the Mountain West wins poaching fees, is the Pac-12 broke? Yes. They can't afford to disperse the money that they don't have that they promised they would get.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, you would be going backwards. At that point, the members who, and this is what I don't fully understand, and I'm more than happy to admit that. I don't understand the dynamic of, hey, these schools or committed to the Pac-12. They haven't officially left yet, obviously, but they've committed to go to the Pac-12 in 26. But if they lose that case and they have to pay those fees and they're unable to pay the fees, then what's after that? Because
I don't know.
Like at that point, because I highly doubt we're going to get into a scenario where the Pac-12 is paying the Mountain West payments over 10 years or something. That's not how that works.
Why would you do that?
Yeah, why would you do that? Number one. But then number two, so if that's not going to happen, then is it just, hey, those schools have to figure out where to go, and then the negotiation just kind of reopens with, whether it would be the Big 12 or the Mountain West? And at that point, if you're Gloria Nevarez and the people who stayed, are you going to hold those schools over a barrel? Or are you instead going to say, hey, it would help the Mountain West push forward if we could get those guys back?
Yeah.
That's what I don't understand, like how that'd work.
Jeremy Bolton, the PAC is what we thought they were. It's what we thought they were. If you want to crown them, crown their ass. Exactly, Dennis Green. We know who the Pac-12 is.
Yeah.
I just wonder when people in Pullman and Corvallis will wake up. Did Yormark ever offer them a lifeline? He did not.
No.
The Mountain West could be much better than they are. Much better than where they are. I think that's very true.
But I think Yormark not offering them a deal speaks to this media rights partner conversation we've had for the last couple of weeks. Why didn't he offer them a deal? Because he knows it's going to be hard to get value on the back end from his TV partners for those two schools.
I think that was an overwhelming storyline that flew under the radar. I think that the TV people made a lot of decisions for these conferences.
Yeah.
And I think that you look at why Los Angeles, Seattle, obviously Eugene and Oregon, that's a one-off, but Oregon's such a massive brand.
Yeah.
But if you look at Texas and Oklahoma, no doubt about it. USC, and by default UCLA, no doubt about it because it's Los Angeles. Seattle, Washington, no doubt about it.
You think ESPN enjoyed that Holy War game with all that drama?
I'm going to say they did. Why did ESPN? Again, not to go back to what I said yesterday, this is why BYU being a snub in the Pac-12 was such a huge mistake by the Pac-12.
Yeah.
Huge mistake. Huge mistake. Great. More vagueness. Yeah, I'm not doing it. Thank you, Jeremy. You're welcome, Tanner. Prime is right. Quality over quantity.
Yeah.
And it's this thing where, and again, every Pac-12 fan tells me I'm an idiot about this. The transfer portal is far more important than the high school kid because you're getting known commodities in the portal. And you're watching Deion Sanders build a blueprint for how to use the portal to win more games. You're watching Ohio State build a blueprint with Caleb Downs and Will Howard. You're watching major universities replace guys like Bo Nix with Dylan Gabriel.
Mm-hmm.
That's where the P4 win and the G5 cannot. You need Ashton Jeanty to stay at Boise. That was huge, very clearly. But that's becoming more and more rare, in my opinion. More and more rare. It's very difficult with the money that's being thrown at 20-year-old kids to get them to stay in one place. It's very, very rare. P5 to P4 was basically a wash. 2 low-value teams were dropped, and value actually went up. There's not consolidation. I'll just continue to say that.